It's almost over. 2020 is almost dead. We're almost in the final stretch. This is like the part of Lord of the Rings where they were on the slopes of Mount Doom, you know, just about there. And Frodo was like, "Oh shit, I can't walk no more." And then Sam was like, I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you.
I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. Come on!
And then he carried his ass through the final stretch. So I'm here to help carry your asses through the final stretch. All right, we got 2021 coming around the corner. The promise of vaccines, like a fresh batch of lambus bread. Y'all remember that? More lambus bread. Yeah, that part.
Lambus bread. And look. More lambus bread.
But to be fair to 2020, it was not all bad. Many of us had the chance to catch up on some hobbies with a little bit of extra leisure time that we had throughout the year. I decided to use that time to start making videos like this. And of course, I also did a whole lot of reading. I managed to read over 52 books. Not that it's a race, but you know, that's not something that I've been able to do all the time. So I figured, since I've got a decent sample size, why not make a top 5 year-end list? That's trendy, right? Everyone loves those. You don't even have to know about the books. You can just listen to it because it's top 5. It's organized from lowest to highest sequentially. All right, number 5 is this little known novel called Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I mean, honestly, Brave New World is an absolute classic. I made a video about it somewhere that you can probably click on. I don't really know how this shit works. But I read this book in like the earliest parts of quarantine, and it has only gotten better and better in my mind since I've read it. This is a book that will worm its way into your thoughts and stay there for a very, very long time, which is to its credit because this is what it's trying to do. It's a dystopian novel that's trying to be thought-provoking and make you question the things around you when you're out in the wild, figuratively speaking, because nobody's going out these days. But yeah, Brave New World is a very interesting take on the dystopian society. It's one that is ruled by hedonism and pleasure, which are weaponized as a way to control the masses and keep them docile. And by keeping them docile, sort of backdoor in this ruthless and oppressive caste system without people even realizing that they're being oppressed in the first place. Brave New World is one of those rare novels that I think absolutely stands the test of time. I'm not really huge on the classics. I'm sorry for all the lit geeks out there who will now think I'm lower than scum for saying that, but that's just how I am. Brave New World stands out among that bunch. Excellent book. Highly recommended. Also, this looks like the poster of Alien, like the OG Alien. I don't know if that's intentional. Anyways, number 4 is a novel that I don't actually have on me because it's in the mail, but it's coming, and it's called The Alice Network by Kate Quinn. I did not make a video about this because I was kind of busy at the time when I was reading it, but basically this novel is set during World War II, or actually right after World War II, and it's all about spies, specifically female spies, specifically one female spy named Eve and a young woman named Charlie, and the way that these two find their lives intertwining. See, they are connected by shared experience with a particular man who I won't go into detail about because I really do think this is a fantastic novel that is worth your time to read without really knowing too much about it. But to summarize, this is a heavily character-driven story with complex female protagonists, and it's really all about agency and the search for agency in a world that is in many ways determined not to allow women to have it. Kate Quinn does a fantastic job of fleshing out these characters and making them feel real and complex like real people are, but still keeping them extremely endearing and easy to root for in the way that you kind of want from a protagonist in a story. And she does an equally great job of fleshing out the antagonist of this story, who I will not talk about, but suffice it to say that the antagonist is sort of a physical manifestation of everything that the women are thematically struggling against, and so that struggle becomes a physical one as well. You know, it's kind of on the nose, but it's so phenomenally done that I have zero problem with it, and I think it actually works to the story's strength. If you find the World War II, or specifically like post-World War II era interesting, if that's a time period that interests you, or you're just on the hunt for stories with strong female protagonists, check out the Alice Network. It is super duper worth your time. Number 3. Here we have another little known author named Stephen King, and his book, 11/22/63. This was actually my first Stephen King novel that I ever read, and I got started with an absolute banger. I gotta tell you, this thing slaps. This thing is super duper good. It's a real thick boy, so you gotta be willing to put in some time, but if you're not explicitly a horror fan, I think this is an excellent way to get into Stephen King. So 11/22/63 is essentially a time travel story. It's about a regular Joe who finds a wormhole into the past. This wormhole leads back to 1958, and he decides that he's going to use it to stop the assassination of JFK, because he thinks that stopping the assassination of JFK will make the world a better place. Now, because this thing is transporting him to 1958, he has to live about 5 years in the past in order to actually successfully save JFK, which is what he's trying to do. And because of that, we get a lot of him sort of living and adjusting to the past, living in the late 50s, early 60s. And the mechanics of the time travel, the psychology of that travel, the adjustment to the past, and the various ways in which he spends his time, both just living his regular life and preparing for the mission that he's on. It's all fleshed out so well, and Stephen King is on top form with his character writing. The various people he meets in the past are all so incredibly well written, so incredibly endearing. It's so easy to get lost. You know, Stephen King is so good at writing sort of small town America in a way that feels organic and also nostalgic. Although I have to say, it is kind of weird to read about this dude like going back and just chilling, like nothing's wrong in segregation era America, because, you know, I look like this, so I can't really mess with that too much. But he does address the elephant in the room, and I'm not gonna hold it against him, you know. But it's just kind of funny to think about, like, you know, if that was me, this would have gone real different. Also, unlike a lot of Stephen King books, the ending in this thing is absolutely fantastic and perfect for the novel. So definitely one to check out if you're a fan of King or not a fan of King and want to start being a fan of King. It's one of my favorite sci-fi novels already. Although, to be fair, I did read it in January, so it's been about a year of like marinating in my skull, and I still think it's great. So check it out, 11/22/63. It's dope. I've heard the TV show is decent, but I don't know. I haven't watched it. Number 2, another book that I don't have on hand is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. I listened to the audiobook of this one, so I don't actually have a physical copy with me, and I'm not really down to buy it twice because I already used an Amazon credit on it. But you know, in a year like 2020, where things have been hard on a lot of people, this book is a godsend. This book is an absolute breath of fresh air. So this series is set in like a far, far future where basically the whole galaxy has been like colonized by tons and tons of different alien species, including humans, but not only including humans. You know, there's all kinds of different races and species living in relative harmony in this future. It's all pretty chill, which is really refreshing to read, even though it might not be believable for many of us with our cynical 2020 mindsets. But it's really refreshing to read, and the story specifically focuses on a small crew of long haulers as they go on a particularly long haul to, spoiler alert, a small angry planet. What do you know? This is essentially slice of life sci-fi. It's wholesome, it's relaxing, it's endearing. It's so easy to fall in love with these characters and just vibe. Like, this book super duper passes the vibe check. Like, I could live on the Wayfarer, which is the name of the ship that they're on. I could live on that thing forever because it just sounds like a lovely time. But you know, this comfy feeling that the book creates, it doesn't come out of nowhere. It's backed by some really great character writing, some genuinely endearing and heartfelt moments. Like, this book has so much heart And it also has some really interesting world building, because there are all of these different races that all have their own kinds of physiology and culture and ways of speaking, you know, not just like verbally speaking, you know, that's like a limited way, a very human-centric way of looking at communication, right? There's all kinds of different things happening within this vast galaxy that make it feel lived in. And I feel like there are so many different corners of this thing that we could explore, because when you're talking about small scale, slice of life type stories, you can explore just about any tiny corner and make it feel alive, but you have to be able to make it feel alive. And this book absolutely does that, knocks it out of the park. I can definitely see myself coming back to this more than most of the other ones on this list, actually, just because of how comfortable it is to read. You know, when things get tough, sometimes you just want to relax and go on a comfy adventure with some old friends, and that's what this book feels like. It feels like a comfy adventure with a bunch of friends. Highly recommend you check it out if that sounds like something that's up your alley. Like, if you're looking to de-stress, I can't think of many things better than this book. All right, number one, this is going to be a bit of a cop-out. I'm just warning you ahead of time. We're actually going to pick two books for number one. But it's not super cop-out because they're actually both part of the same series. We're doing Discworld, baby. Discworld by Terry Pratchett. We have Guards and Men-at-Arms. Why Guards and Men-at-Arms? Because those are the only two I read this year. Full disclosure. I'm still a baby in Discworld terms, but I started out with these two, and I gotta say, they're amazing. They're so good, guys. They are absolutely incredible. I don't care who you are. Like, this is one of the rare instances where I will say this. It does not matter who you are. These books are amazing. Like, I can't conceive of a person not liking these books because they are so universally fantastic. I realized much later on that I didn't actually explain what the Discworld series is. So Discworld is a series of 41 comedy fantasy novels written by Sir Terry Pratchett. 41 might sound very intimidating, but it's actually split into a bunch of smaller like sub-series or story arcs. This one in particular is called The Watch and focuses on a group of wacky night watchmen in a city called Ankh-Morpork. I think I'm saying that right, but I'm not sure. Now, obviously, because these are all set on the same world, there are a lot of crossovers between the various different characters and series and stuff. There are a few that I noticed, even as someone who's never read another Discworld book. But you can read any of these in any order you want. Discworld is very accessible that way, which is a credit to Sir Terry Pratchett, I think. So anyways, back to your regularly scheduled programming, I guess. In some ways, it's kind of similar to A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, because these are very sort of warm and heartfelt books. These are very uplifting in general, and they make you feel good. And those feel-good books, you know, we all need stuff like that at a time like this. But when I say these books work for everyone, I genuinely mean that. For starters, Pratchett is an absolutely amazing satirist, and his comedy is just relentless. These books are so funny. They're hilarious, they're witty, they're absolute page-turners. Just on the comedy alone, you'll want to keep turning the page because the hijinks are on point. Judged as more serious stories, they still knock it out of the park. Like, they have great characters, although to be fair, most great comedies have to have great character writing in order to make the comedy sort of hit you hard. It has to be like, oh, that's such a blank character, insert character's name thing to do. But, you know, these books do it really well. The stories are engaging, the plots, the narratives, the pacing is great, and there's a ton of heart. You know, there's just genuine heart and emotion that you might not even expect because they're billed as like comedies that take the piss out of the fantasy genre, but it'll hit you in the feels sometimes. They're also thought-provoking. Like, there's so much social commentary in here, and it's so well baked into the writing that it never feels preachy. It never feels like he's talking down to you. It never feels out of place with all the comedy and all the other stuff going on. It's just so effortlessly blended together. There's one really famous quote from Men-at-Arms that you may have heard of, even if you haven't read the book. If you search up Sam Vimes' Boots Theory, then you'll see it. It's pretty long, so I'm not going to repeat it. But it's one of those famous quotes that gets passed around in many different circles that have nothing to do with its origin. And it's not the only example of biting social commentary in the series, but it might be the most famous one. So, if you're interested, you can go ahead and read that. And if that sounds like, oh, wow, this is well written, I want more of this, well, check out the Discworld books. What are you waiting for? But yeah, like these books, you could show them to anyone of any age group, basically, and they would love it. And what's great is that you could show the same person these books at like various different stages of their life, and they would love it every single time for a different reason. Like, the kids will love it because it's funny and it's fast paced. And then once you get a grasp for character writing, you'll love it because the characters are so great. There's so much heart and it gets you emotionally involved. And once you start to read for themes and thematic consistency, social commentary, and all the other isms of writing that I'm not smart enough to understand yet, but if I ever reach that level, maybe I'll review these books again. But if you get to that point, I guarantee you're still going to love these things. Like, they're damn near flawless. I honestly can't think of a downside to reading these unless you literally can't stand reading comedy for whatever reason. So yeah, this series is so great. I love it, even though all the main characters are cops. And if you want an example of something hilarious, it's not going to be as funny because I'm telling you instead of Terry Pratchett writing it. But one of the main characters is like a 6+ foot tall dude named Carrot, who was adopted by dwarves as a child. So because he grew up a dwarf, he is effectively, culturally, and legally a dwarf, but he's like 6 feet tall. So he's a giant dwarf. He's a walking contradiction. And it's just hijinks. The hijinks, man. Check it out, please. Go read Discworld. I've only read 2. I'm going to read the other ones. I might be like 60 by the time I finish, but I will do it. So yeah, honorable mention, I guess, to Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson, because I love it. But I also just finished it, and it feels kind of cheesy to give the 4th book in a series a spot in a top 5 list like this. Also recency bias. I did just finish it. So that's my top 5. Let me know how you feel about it. If you've read any of them, or if you haven't, but you want to now, let me know. And if you do end up reading them and don't like them, please don't hate me. It's not my fault. I'm just telling you how I feel, right? No guarantees here. Your mileage may vary. But yeah, have a great Christmas, happy holidays, happy New Year. Hopefully 2021 goes better for all of us. I mean, it would be hard for it to get worse, right? Top 10 phrases that age badly? I don't know.